Well, thank you very much. And yes, you've arrived at an LRH birthday celebration to cap a century and crown 100 years. Well, even more than that, it's a celebration for all the years to come, because tonight we honor an LRH presence that is all-encompassing and never-ending. So to begin, let us set the agenda as follows. This evening indeed belongs to LRH. His life, his legacy, his impact and influence, these are the things we honor. And in so doing, we're about to travel a road of adventure, of intrigue, of magic, of discovery, and of truth. Meaning, we're about to travel in the footsteps of LRH, beginning 100 years ago today. But to begin, it's only appropriate we set the stage with the grand panoramic view for but a glimpse of the sheer scope. Indeed, his adventures and accomplishments were so far beyond the average man that to avoid straining credulity, he forever told a lesser tale. But tonight is not a night for lesser tales, not by a long shot. So if you've heard it said he traveled the world while still in his teens, well, compare it and contrast it with this. In an age when people rarely ventured beyond the borders of hometowns, and before the advent of commercial aviation, LRH logged more than 250,000 miles, which equates to 10 times the circumference of Earth. Then again, if you've heard it said LRH was first and foremost an author, well, you can also now add this. Between a first published tale in 1930 and the twilight of the pulps in 1950, LRH authored more than 300 novels, novelettes, and short stories, which is more than Charles Dickens, Mark Twain, Jack London, and Edgar Rice Burroughs combined. Whereupon he took a little break from literature, 30 years to be exact, after which he returned to the fore like nothing in the history of publishing, with 11 New York Times bestsellers, one right after the next, until, when coupled with all other LRH tales on the shelf, make for more than 47 million copies now in circulation world over. But of course, tonight we honor LRH as the founder of Dianetics and Scientology, which is a saga like no other ever told. It begins in an era when works on the human mind were relegated to university libraries and rarely read, if ever opened. Then, all of a sudden, there it was, the first popular book on the subject, dominating bestseller lists for the whole of 1950. And history was only beginning, for returning to the forefront again and again, Dianetics became the first book to ever ride the list for 100 consecutive weeks, which is why Publishers Weekly created the Century Award to honor LRH and the #1 self-help book of all time. But that's still the lesser tale, because in total, his discoveries now comprise the world's most comprehensive body of work on the human spirit, more than 76 million words, which is twice the scope of the Encyclopedia Britannica, authored by some 4,000 scholars over 250 years. And even so, that's still the summary view. For if it was a wildfire in 1950, with each passing year the demand grows exponentially. 10 times the number of LRH works in the hands by the end of the decade, 100 times by the end of 5 decades, while just since the turn of this 21st century, it's tenfold above and beyond the first 50 years combined, with more than 280 million copies of his works in the hands of people out there. And that's the sum and substance behind his 4 Guinness World Records, including most published and most translated author of all time. And that's also the greater story of those 21 races and cultures he studied en route to founding Scientology, and including peoples as diverse as Carib Indians and Aleutian Eskimos. Only today, it's 222 races and cultures that now study his works in virtually every country of Earth. While for the substance of what it's all meant to the world out there, it's an unending flood of thank yous, from armies, navies, and air forces to police departments, fire departments, mayors, and governors, from the United Nations and UNESCO to the NAACP and ACLU, from universities and academies to senators, presidents, prime ministers, and princes, and that's not even counting the keys to cities, or the streets, parks, and landmarks named in his honor, and the L. Ron Hubbard Days from across 70 countries. There they are, the awards, recognitions, and proclamations bestowed on LRH, and yes, combine it all, and that's the name L. Ron Hubbard imprinted on this planet for his 2011 centennial celebration. If only to reiterate it, our theme for tonight is Source and a celebration of L. Ron Hubbard for a birthday like none other on Earth. For while we mark a centennial with this gathering, his is a birthday that will ring unto eternity. Of course, and as always traditional, we'll also present the gifts LRH most wished for in return for his legacy. Yes, an array of ideal orgs befitting his technology. Yes, the world champion missions and organizations bringing his legacy to the world. And yes, a gift wrapped in red ribbon for the first day of the next centennial. But to begin, let's return to when it all began, 1 century ago. And for that, I give you the LRH biographer, Mr. Dan Sherman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Among other pointed statements from his greater journey, LRH described his life as the longest story he ever wrote. Not that he ever intended to make a story of himself.